Hello, this is Christian. Welcome to Angular. In this video, let's take a look at the reactive forms in Angular. So in the reactive form, the source of truth or the actual data is in the form model or in the source. And because of that, you can access the data directly in the source without, pulling data from the view, meaning you don't have to do a submission, pass the data from the form to the source. You get that automatically. And so here is a diagram to show you the direction or how data are linked together from the view and the template to the source. Okay, so when a connection is made between the form control template element and the source, which is the form control, then you have this direct access to this element here. Data are now linked directly to its control here. So this is like the two-way data binding process. And because of this direct access to this form control, you can do a lot of things to each of these components in the form here. So here in the example code, you see that the template, of course, you still need to go to the form and create the form and then create the elements you need for that. But as you can see here, you just require mainly just two things: the name. Actually, you don't even need the name here. Also, this is just optional. You don't even need anything here, just the form control here. And whether you are doing a form group or not, this one might change a little bit, but other than that, that's really all you need. So it's really very less in the template, but most of your code will be managed in the source, which is the other way around for the template-driven form. So let's go and take a look and see how this is done in the code. So here is, well, let's go back to the view first. I want to show you this is the same form that we're going to do. It looks very similar to the template driven here. Last time we did this, so this is now the reactive. I'm going to show the same data again, which have three fields, and add the data to the form you submit. It sends that data over to another object, and of course we can clear that as well. Okay. So here in the source code, I'm going to go to the components, reactive. I created this already. Here's the form, and here's the source. Okay, so there's nothing here yet. In the form, so as you can see, it's very plain, very basic form. Mainly just, CSS to make them look nice and so on. But here's the input field, the input for the username and email, and then two buttons at the bottom. And also another div to show the data. Eventually we'll replace this with actual content. So now for a form control using Reactive, so all you have to do basically is replace all these name fields with the, you bind that to the form control. So form control. And that takes care of that, right? So let me copy this and bind to all those three. So now these are the actual name or field names or controls that we need to create in the source. Okay, and basically that's it. Well, we need to do when you submit as well. So you submit, so you can send the data over. When you submit the form, though, I mean, you don't have to send any data over. It just basically triggers so that this form is for like validation purposes and so on. So on the very top here, I'm still going to do an ng submit, so to submit this form. But I'm not going to send any data over. So let's just say I have a function called onSubmit, and nothing is passed to it. Okay. We just triggered the form, and once the form is submitted, we can process some information to the database or to other things. So let's go and add these three fields: name, username, and email. So in here, now we just need to import the form control, and it should do it automatically for us. So let's say that I'm going to write above here, I guess. Yeah, leave that alone up there. I have a name. So it's going to be a new form control. It's an object, right? So this one didn't get imported. I'm going to go and do the quick fix here. And it should be imported from the forms. As you can see here, this is a form control. And then I do another one, two more. This is the username, and this one here is the email. And then that's it. Pretty much that's all you need. Now what's inside here are just some, like the default data, and so on. So let's go back here and see what's, oh yeah, the function on submit. So I need to have a function called on submit, and then I'm not receiving anything here at all. Okay, so let's save this, and let's print this out when we submit the form. So I'm going to do like a console log, just see what they are. Oops. I'll get the name. Now it has, to get the data, the actual data, you have to say the name.value. Okay, so this is kind of similar to the field inside in here, right? So you get the input will be like input.value, whatever it is when you do your JavaScript. So that value will give you the value. And I just do that one for the first name so you can see. Well, let's do all three. Username.value, and then this the email.value. Okay, we print that to the console so we can see. Let's save this. And not just man, I'm not needing this one here. All right, so let's go check it out. And let me press F12. Okay, and go ahead and type in Joe Black. Okay. So here we go. Here I have the name, Joe, the username, and email coming through without even sending any data over the form, right? You submit it, I access those data directly in the source because these are just like variable names. It's like data binding. Right? You're binding to this data here directly from the FormControl here. And so you have access to each of these elements here in the source. Now, so what is the reason or what's the purpose of that? Well, you can do a lot of things because you have access to these elements, you have control of it, you can do all your validations, and especially validations in the code. So notice I don't have to put like, okay, I want to have required. You don't have to do that here. All of these can be done inside the code. Require you have like the minimum length and the maximum length to make sure it's a password, right? Like I don't have to say the type is a password or email. I can do all of that in the code. And so my tags are really, really short. I just need the really minimum, whatever I need, and then that's it. Now notice I do these tags, I bind that to the FormControl object here, and each of those fields have to be created manually like this, right? So if you were to create the object, for example, users of many users, then I have to basically put this into an object, right? Like this. So this that users that push, I push into it, and I have to turn it into an object like that, and it'll be like name colon that, and then username colon and email colon, right? It's pretty long, but that is the object. So after I push it to the object, it adds that to the list. And then out here in the bottom, I'm going to replace this, and we'll do a loop in here to loop through the entire list so we can get this data. So we'll put in G4, let user of users, and also want to get the index, alias that with the I for shortcut. So we're going to print the I plus 1 because you don't want to start with 0. Put a dot here, and then the first thing is the user, the name. So it'll be user.name dash user username. Let me just type username, and then we have the user.email. Okay, so let's save that and go over to the form and see if add some data. So here we go. If I put here Jack Smith, just@smith.com, add. So here we get Jack Smith information here. I've just put Jack 2. Oh, whatever. I didn't validate that, but add. You can see that I added that. very nicely to the form here, right? And so that's pretty good because you can see I don't have to worry about sending data over to my form at all because I access these directly. So this is how reactive forms work. And again, I did not put any validation here. You could. And by doing the validation, we'll do a separate video. You just keep adding to this control here. Now, inside this control, you can add some other things here. So the first thing is usually the value, the default value, or if you want to bind that to another object out here, you can bind it here. So, for example, if you want to put the name Jack here as the initial value, you can do that here. And if I save that, if I go to the view, you see that Jack has been pre-populated for us. So the first element is the value that you bind to this form here. And then the second group, or the second part here, is actually the validation. So if you want to validate, say, the minimum, so you have validator's object or class right here, and you can input that in as well from the forms. And so you can see it has all these other things. The email type, is it a length, the maximum length, the minimum length, the required field, right? So instead of writing that in the template, you could just put that required here. And if you have more than one validations, you can just keep doing that, but you put that into a list like this. So now I can add another one. So validators dot minimum length. It's a function, say 2 characters, for example. Okay, so that, let's say that is the one, and I'll leave it blank. Okay, leave it blank. Now, if I do that, and let's also say that when I do this output here, instead of just saying, the value, I'm going to print just the name, so I can see other references. Okay, because the value is just one of the properties of the name. It has many more. So let's save that, and let's go to the view and see what happens. So refresh my page just in case. And if I do a submit now, okay, so you see the sends over, nothing has been sent. But over here, this is the name field. Okay, if I expand this arrow, you see that all this information here are attached to each of these control. And inside here, you say a status called invalid. This is for validation. Why is it invalid? Well, because it failed 2 of my tests, right? One, for sure, it has not met my minimum characters. So therefore it's required. And it's required, and it doesn't meet my minimum characters. Right? So it has both of those fail. Now, so valid is false, right? Is it invalid? It's true, yeah, it's not valid. Now, if I were to go and just clear this again, if I put a 1 character, right, that still fails because I require 2 characters, right? Now, if I put 2 characters, then now that should say valid. As you can see, it's now passed. So you can capture these flags in the code and check to see, should you proceed or not. And you can also access these properties as well in the template too. And you can check that directly in the template, and you can, validate all of these before you move on. And we'll do a separate video for validation, but that's what these contain. Now, these properties here are part of the form control. So each of them have their own information here. So let's do another way to do this. Now, these are, again, I did this, each of them have like 20 fields. I have to do 20 of them, right? Which is required anyway. Now, of course, when you submit, you can still get this data through the event, if you want to do the old way, the old-fashioned way, yeah, just put an event here, and then all this data will come through as well through the submit here. Okay, it's the same as before, but you don't even need that. So let's say that now you might have 2 or 3 forms, right? So if that's the case, or you might have a group of other forms inside that form itself, if it's a really large form. So what you do is you have you put this into what's called a form group, okay? And we turn this to form group, then you have to modify this form a little bit. Just, I mean, not that much different, but just a few things. So one is you have to give it a name, right? Just like the other one we did, is to give it a unique name. So you would say you bind that to a form group. And this group here, what is the form of this group? Name of this form, this group. And let's just say I call it my form. Okay. And then here, instead of saying, because you're already bound to this form group, you're not going to do this here anymore. So you change these to say just form control name. So I'm using the camel case convention here. Okay, so form control name, change that to form control name, and then now they are still bound to the form controls, but then now you access these form controls through this form group now. So let's save this, and let's go ahead and create my form group. This my form here in the code. So in here, then you need to say form group. That's the same name you use out there. We'll actually call my form equals a new form group. And so now it's a group, and this is also another form you have to import up here. So let's just do a quick fix over that. If it doesn't let me do it, then just go up here and, it did already. Okay, so now these are going to be nested inside here now. Okay, in here is an object of all your form elements or controls. So you just basically put this in here, and then now you turn this into properties. Just basically put colons in here, and then put commas over here. And then now it looks just like before, except this time you can't access the name directly now. You have to go through this form, my form object. So here, I'll say this my form dot name, right? Should give you that. Actually, no, it's the value. This form here has a value. The value contains these properties. So kind of like this, my form dot value dot something. So here will be that value dot name. Okay, to get to these fields. And so for this part then, that's going to be pretty long. But because of this control here, as you can see, it's already an object, right? So hey, that means you can just replace all of these and say this my form dot value, and it returns the whole object for you automatically into this users variable. Pretty neat, huh? And so it's very short now. So again, if I save that and go to the view, refresh my code, and make sure there are no errors. Okay, so again, go A, B, C, and submit. There's A, B, C, and there is the A I put out here. Again, I don't see the actual form control, but if I go back and just add that to the output, say I put right, I'm going to take this out, the name out, and we'll just keep the value, or just keep the form itself, okay, my form. Save that, and let's do one more time, refresh everything here, put A, B, C. All right, so ABC comes through because we didn't validate, so it was going to process anyway. But if this is what's inside the form group, the my form. Okay, so you look in here, you see that, I'm just going to do this. It has the value here. The value contains the name, username, and email fields, their data, and the status is invalid. Okay, the status is invalid because A, the name did not meet our criteria, right? Because we require that it has to be 2 characters. It's required. Same thing. You can see that. And so it's invalid. No, it's not. So the form is not valid because of that thing. So it's exactly same as before, except you access through the form object called my form. Okay, and then dot value dot these fields. These are if you exactly fill in that order in your form. So that's also important. The order is important. Only if you are doing like I do here, if your user had to be in that order, then the form is important. Otherwise, you have to, reorder, restructure, and plug it into the users. Okay. So that is how form groups work and how reactive forms work by using these form controls.